His Agent Carter, written by 𝒂𝒏𝒂 𝒂𝒏𝒂, or known as WNB. Chapter 1. On a rainy night, Sharon spent her time in her apartment watching movies. Suddenly, a picture of her and Peggy fell off the wall and shattered into pieces upon hitting the floor. She crouched down, picking up the pieces. As she gathered them, she noticed something peculiar. The glass on Peggy's side of the picture frame was shattered, but her own side remained completely intact. She furrowed her brows, unease settling deep within her as she realized something felt off. Try as she might to dismiss it, the ominous feeling lingered. Her thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of her phone. The number was unfamiliar, and she hesitated before answering. "Hello, Sharon Carter speaking," she said cautiously. A man's voice came through the line, his words sending a shiver down her spine. "It's about Peggy." The phone slipped from her hand, hitting the floor. Sharon didn't need him to say more. She already sensed what was coming. 6 days later, the Pink Lady Breakfast Hub was bustling with activity. Amid the chatter, Bucky Barnes sat at a corner table, nursing his coffee as he waited for Sharon Carter. He wasn't sure if she would show up, and he wouldn't blame her if she didn't. Grief took time. Bucky had heard plenty about Sharon from Peggy, who often spoke fondly of her younger sister. Today would be the first time he met Sharon face to face. The door swung open, and a figure stepped inside. Bucky looked up, immediately recognizing her. Sharon Carter was unmistakable, looking every bit like the image on Peggy's phone wallpaper. She scanned the room, searching. Taking a deep breath, Bucky rose and made his way toward her. Sharon turned, her gaze meeting his. The man before her had raven black hair and piercing blue-green eyes that were almost impossible to define. Bucky spoke first, sensing that Sharon might not recognize him. "Miss Sharon Carter, I'm Bucky James?" she interjected softly, using his first name. She had heard enough about him from Peggy to feel familiar with him. Peggy always referred to him as James. "Well, yes, that's my first name," Bucky replied with a faint smile. "But I prefer people to call me Bucky, except for your sister. She insisted on James." He gestured toward the table, pulling out a chair for her. Sharon nodded her head and thanked him before sitting down. Bucky didn't want to rush things, but he felt it was best to get to the point. Clearing his throat, he said, "Don't you want some revenge?" Sharon blinked, startled. She stared at him, clearly puzzled. "I'm sorry, what?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "Revenge, Sharon," Bucky repeated firmly. "But not just any revenge, one that ensures your safety, too. Don't you want to honor your sister?" Sharon adored Peggy for her courage, perseverance, and unwavering loyalty to S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers. Peggy had always warned her about revenge, cautioning that it would only lead to more pain. But Sharon couldn't shake the need to make someone, anyone, suffer for what had happened. If Peggy were here, she would oppose the very idea of revenge, insisting it was the worst path Sharon could take. But Peggy wasn't here. After their parents' deaths, Peggy had taken on the role of Sharon's mentor, guiding her through life's toughest challenges. Now, Sharon was alone, and though she knew her desire for retribution went against Peggy's wishes, the urge for vengeance burned stronger than ever. "I do want revenge," Sharon said firmly, her voice steady and resolute. While the students of Centerville High School were discussing their diorama project, the son of Bucky Barnes from a previous relationship was among them. The task was to create a model of one's hero, and Ares immediately knew his choice, his father, Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier. To Ares, his dad wasn't just a great hero, he was an incredible parent, someone Ares was proud to call his father. As his classmates said their goodbyes, Ares packed up, grabbed his bike, and headed home. However, any excitement he felt quickly turned into bitter disappointment and anger when he spotted his mother, Spencer, nearby, the woman who had abandoned him and his father. She had walked away on their wedding day when Ares was just 5 years old, telling him she wasn't ready for motherhood or marriage. It was a day etched in Ares's memory, one he would never forget and could never forgive. "Ares," Spencer said with a forced smile, stepping closer as if to bridge the gap between them. But Ares wouldn't let her. Without a word, he turned back to his bike and pedaled away. "Ares!" she called desperately, but he didn't stop, didn't look back. He kept pedaling, leaving her behind, making it impossible for her to follow. Anguish and frustration exploded from Ares in a guttural yell as he continued riding, tears streaming down his face. His chest felt heavy, crushed under the weight of years of neglect. No calls, no letters, no support during his childhood, not even a simple birthday greeting. Just silence. Ares didn't care how far he went, so long as he could escape her presence. He didn't want to hear from her or see her again. She was dead to him, as she had been for years. He had grown up with only his father, who had always tried to soften the truth by telling Ares that his mother hadn't abandoned him, but Ares knew better. It was a lie Bucky told to shield him from anger and pain. As Ares grew older, he came to realize the truth. His mother had never been worth holding on to. His wrath and resentment toward Spencer were unyielding. To him, she didn't deserve forgiveness, or even the faintest hint of love. As rain began to fall, it felt as though the storm mirrored his emotions, offering some strange sense of comfort. Ares didn't mind the downpour. He welcomed it. The rain mixed with his tears as he rode on. He wanted to scream at her for her irresponsibility. He wanted her to know that no matter what she did, nothing could fix what she had broken. The heartache of Ares was caused by his mother, Spencer, who had abandoned him because she wasn't ready to embrace motherhood. Her absence left him feeling unworthy and shattered, struggling to understand why he wasn't enough for her to stay. He kept crying as he pedaled away faster than he thought he could. Flashback. Ares watched his mom tearfully as Spencer slowly returned the ring to Bucky. The young boy was confused, unsure of what his parents were talking about. The priest stood frozen, and the wedding guests were equally stunned. The silence in Grace Cathedral was deafening. No echo could be heard. Bucky tried to talk to Spencer, but she wasn't backing down from her decision. She walked over to Ares, kneeling to his height. "Mommy, why are you crying?" little Ares asked, reaching out to wipe her tears with his tiny fingers. Spencer shook her head, her voice trembling. "I can't do this." Ares was puzzled and asked slowly, "Can't do what, Mommy?" "I'm not ready to be a mom and a wife," Spencer said, trying to explain herself gently, but her words came out more harshly than she intended. Ares watched as his mom ran out of the altar. He hoped she would come back, but she never did. Flashback over. Ares arrived at Grand Central Station. He reached into his bag to grab his wallet and buy a ticket home. Before doing so, he double-checked to make sure his mom hadn't followed him. When Ares finally felt relief, he glanced back at his wallet. Just then, someone patted him on the shoulder. He froze, then turned around to see it was only MJ and Peter. He sighed in relief, glad it wasn't his mom. "My treat," Peter said, since they were all headed in the same direction. 5 minutes later, as the train sped along, the three of them sat next to each other, and Ares began to tell them what had happened. "Did she talk to you?" MJ asked softly. Ares slowly shook his head in response. Peter cleared his throat before asking, "You didn't let her talk?" Ares nodded, confirming that he hadn't. He still remembered the days when Bucky would cry for her, and how Bucky tried to make sure Ares wouldn't grow angry at Spencer, but it never worked. "Please don't tell Dad about what happened," Ares requested, looking at the couple with a pleading expression. Peter and MJ looked at each other before sighing and nodding in agreement with him. Right now, Ares wanted nothing to do with his mom. He swore that if she ever returned, he would choose his dad. 3 hours later, Peter, MJ, and Ares arrived at the Avengers mansion. Ares looked around but couldn't find his dad. Just then, Tony walked by, and Ares asked, "Uncle Tony, where's Dad?" Tony turned around, looked at Ares, and smiled. "Don't worry, he went to talk to Sharon." The name sounded familiar, and Ares raised his eyebrow. "Auntie Peggy's younger sister?" Tony nodded. Ares remembered seeing Sharon once when she was picking up Peggy's remains from the hospital morgue while his dad went to the restroom. He felt sorry for her. He could see how pure her love for her sister was.